Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Jessica Edgerton, EVP of Operations and Corporate Counsel for Leading RE, and I am so pleased to have Larry Kendall here with us today to give us insights on staying financially sound during these uncertain times. Larry is the author of Ninja Selling and a founding partner of the group. He is an international speaker and coach and very well known in our industry for life-changing leadership and sales training sessions. For anyone who's not aware, Larry has a number of excellent Ninja courses available on Leading RE's beautifully and newly reimagined learning management system, the Institute. As of yesterday evening, we more than doubled the number of free courses available on our new Institute for the entire month of April. And Larry has generously offered his Institute Ninja courses as part of this special free package. So please do go ahead and check it out after today's webinar. Before I turn it over to Larry, a couple of housekeeping items. First, audience, you are all on mute. If you have a question, please go ahead and post it in the discussion box and I will address it with Larry at the end of his presentation. Second, this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be published on Leading RE Access within 24 hours. If you have any questions about how to access that, go ahead and post it in the question box. Larry, thank you so much for being with us here today, and the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Jessica. Thanks for the invitation and to be a part of this and for that nice introduction. So we're going to focus today on something that we call Wake Up Money, Creating Financial Freedom. And we're going to do this in the context of the coronavirus. First of all, surviving it. How do we get through the next 2 or 3 months? And then how do we thrive? And so surviving and thriving this coronavirus economy that we're in right now. What I'm finding is a lot of real estate people are laying awake at night. And when I ask them what's causing you to lay awake at night, they say that there's 2 primary fears. One is their health. Clearly, they're concerned about getting the virus or having their family members. So their health is concerned. And the other big one is their wealth. How do they make it through this financially? And so that's what we're going to focus on in this webinar. Patty Phillips is a partner of ours in our real estate company. She and I have worked together for over 30 years. Her nickname is Peppermint Patty. And I saw Peppermint Patty in the office a couple of weeks ago, right before the shelter-in-place rules went into effect. She was walking through the office. I said, Patty, how you doing? And she says, I'm evolving. And I laughed. I says, Patty, what do you mean you're evolving? She says, look it up. So I looked up evolution, and it's the ability of a species to change or adapt to its environment in order to survive. And she says that's what we have to do right now. We have to adapt to the current market in order to survive. So a lot of this is our mindset. And Patty has a mindset that says it's not what's happening, it's how do I adapt or how do I respond to what's happening that matters. And so we'd like to offer you some strategies on how to respond to this. I had somebody say to me the other day when I kind of went through this, they said, wow, Larry, you've just offered me a way out. And I said, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, I was laying awake at night worrying about how I was going to make it through the next 2 or 3 months. And you've offered me some ideas that will offer me a way out. So what I would recommend that you focus on right now, and I'd like to talk about the immediate, today, the next week, the next month or two, and then we'll talk later about what happens when this hopefully is over in a few months, what to do longer term. Right now, cash is king, and you should be protecting your cash as much as you possibly can. Try to reduce your expenses as much as possible. Try to protect your cash. Make sure you've got some room on your credit cards. If you're thinking about making a big investment that would require cash, we would recommend that you postpone that. If you look at major corporations right now, they're issuing bonds. They're building cash. I know in our real estate company, we expanded our line of credit. We actually have all of our office buildings are free and clear. We're actually putting a loan on one to build cash. So cash is king right now. So take a look at that. Number two, consider a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, as a potential safety net. You know, my son and his wife and their little 2-year-old daughter, they're sitting at home right now, both of them unemployed. They have enough savings to make it through 2 or 3 months. And then they were nervous about, well, we don't know what we're going to do after that. And I had to remind them that they were sitting on $150,000 of home equity. And that what they really should do is go down and get a home equity line of credit as a safety net. You don't have to draw it. You don't have to pay interest on it unless you use it. But again, you want to make sure that you've got enough fuel, basically, to keep going. And cash right now is the key to that. Also, we'd recommend that you check out the CARES Act. This is the stimulus package that was recently passed. There's a couple of provisions in there for small companies as well as independent contractors. NAR has issued frequently asked questions on this. You can go to the NAR website and get more information. And a couple of dates that you're going to want to pay attention to are April the 3rd and April the 10th. April the 3rd is the time when applications open for small businesses. So if you're a broker owner that's on this webinar, that would be tomorrow for you. These applications are handled through the Small Business Administration, through your local commercial bank. And then next, a week from tomorrow, April the 10th, is the time when independent contractors can apply for assistance. So keep that in mind. Check out the CARES Act. And then finally, something to focus on right now is there is still a market in many parts of the country. And it's amazing how real estate people and buyers and sellers are adapting to this market. The number of homes that are being shown through virtual tours or through video, homes that contracts are being written basically sight unseen. They're being seen online or they're being seen through video. But contracts are being written subject to a review or a tour of the home later. We're touring homes very differently now. You know, you've got sellers that if they're comfortable having somebody come in their house, they have all the doors open and the cabinet drawers open, and buyers are not to touch anything. Buyers are coming in with gloves and masks. I mean, it's totally different. We're doing, you know, what they call curbside closings with title companies, where we handle the documents out through the window, throw away pins. I mean, it's a very, very different environment right now, but what we're seeing is there is still a market. So don't go and become a hermit and totally hibernate. Stay in touch, stay in close contact with your buyers, your sellers, because there is still a need for what we do. Anytime you experience something like this, I have the philosophy that life is giving me a lesson. And life gives the lessons, and we either learn the lesson or we get the lesson again. And so I feel like this is some sort of a wake-up call, and I'm asking myself, okay, what's the lesson here? Well, what's the lesson on my health? Well, I think the lesson for me is that you want to be healthy. And if you're healthy, if you get the virus, you're more likely to survive it. In fact, 80% of the people who get it don't even know they have it. They're healthy and their immune system is tuned up. They don't even know they have it, which is, frankly, one of the things that makes it so dangerous, because they can be spreading the virus and they don't even know that they have it. But if you're not as healthy as you would like to be, if you are laying awake worrying about your health and so on, this is a wake-up call. Our health largely is determined by our lifestyle and some of the choices that we make. And so you may want to take a look at your health, and if it's not where you want it to be, this is an opportunity to get started on improvement. The other one is your wealth, and that's the one we're going to focus on. You know, if you're laying awake at night worrying about how you're going to make it through this month or next month, then that should be a wake-up call that you don't want to be in that position. You know, I can remember I got into real estate in 1973 and had some early success, was blowing and going, making money, but also spending that money. And then all at once, the 1980 market hit. And prime rate was above 20%. Mortgage rates were 17.5%. That market went on for 3 years, 1980, 81, 82, very, very difficult times. I remember we went in our company over 2 years without ever selling a house with a new conventional loan. We were doing assumptions, and what they call wraparounds and owner carries, and it was a very tough time. My wife and I almost went broke during that period, and we said that was a wake-up call for us. And we said, you know what, we're never going to go through this again. We are going to, we're not going to get this lesson again. We're going to learn from the lesson, and we're going to take measures, which I'm going to share with you, to improve our wealth situation. And in 1981, I started teaching a course called Wake Up Money. And the goal of that course is to help you increase your net worth so that you can enjoy financial freedom. Your balance sheet in a turbulent market is more important than your income. It's your balance sheet that provides you, or your net worth that provides you with that safety net and that ability to survive a blow. And so I started teaching that in 1981, and many of our people in our real estate company have become financially wealthy through that. The idea of Wake Up Money is how much money would you like to have coming in by simply waking up if something were to happen so that you could not work, whether it's your health or whether it's a pandemic, you still have money coming in. And I have many, many partners in our real estate company who right now are looking at this as a 30 or 60-day vacation. They have plenty of money coming in, whether they sell a house or not. So we want to share with you how to do that. And that's really the goal of this the second part of this webinar. I'm going to start by making you a little bit uncomfortable. I've been told that I use what's called the velvet hammer. And so let's start with the greatest fear. This is a study that was done, or a survey that was done in Inc. magazine. And here's a hint. Being old and broke. That's the greatest fear many people have, being old and broke. Here's the scary thing. In the wealthiest country in the world, the odds of living in poverty at age 65 are 45%. Almost half of our older Americans live in poverty. They rely on some sort of subsistence, either from family or from government. But most of us don't want to live in poverty. And how does that happen? Well, I'll show you in a minute what we believe is happening. But what's interesting is now it's not just old and broke, it's young and broke. 17% of people under 40 won't be able to pay their bills this month, and 40% of them don't have enough cash. We earlier talked about cash is king. They don't have enough cash to cover an unexpected $400 expense. So this is why this is a very, very challenging time for many households, whether you're old or whether you're young. And then, of course, young people, many of them are carrying record student debt. So what's the answer? Well, first of all, what is the problem? And what the problem is a lot of people are what we call drifters. This is a term that was coined by Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. His most recent book that was just published after 70 years after he wrote it, it's called Outwitting the Devil. And he says a lot of people are just drifting through life. And they don't have any definite chief aim. They don't have a goal to have wake-up money. They don't have a goal to be wealthy. They don't have a lot of goals. They just kind of are drifting. They spend a lot of their time being focused on other people, and especially they like to spend time on social media. They're just living on default, and they're in this continuous state of partial attention, really a continuous state of distraction. And their life is about getting up in the morning and being entertained. And Dr. Stephen Covey talks about that. If you read his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about the 3 life circles that we live in. The center circle is the circle of control, the middle circle is the circle of influence, and the outer circle is the circle of concern. You know, there are certain things we're concerned about. Clearly, we're concerned about this pandemic right now. We're also concerned typically about our friends on social media. We're concerned many times about our sports teams and how are they going to do and what's the geopolitical situation. But you know what? In the circle of concern, we don't have a lot of control over that, or even influence for that matter. What we have influence over is our family and our friends and our clients. And clearly what we have control over is our habits. You know, what time we get up, our sleep habits, our eating habits, our exercise habits, our habits as far as how we connect in our business with our clients. what he noticed is the most successful people spend most of their time focused on their circle of control and their circle of influence. The circle of concern is where the drifters live. They are obsessed with that, and they spend most of their life in the circle of concern. So what we would encourage you to do is don't live there. I mean, get up in the morning, maybe check the news once, but don't spend the day watching the news. Don't spend the day watching reality television or Netflix or spending your time on social media. Instead, focus on the things you can control and the things that you can influence. And we're going to give you some tips on that here in just a minute. I often ask people, when was the last time you experienced financial pressure? They look at me and say, look at their watch. They say, what time is it? I experience financial pressure all the time. Well, that's not healthy. That's not good for your health. It's clearly not good for your finances. And so I ask them, well, what would be the answer? And they almost always will give the same answer. I just need to make more money. Well, I'm not so sure that's the answer. I can remember hiring a young teacher who was making about $46,000 a year as a school teacher. She wanted to get into real estate, which she did. She followed our ninja system. Within 4 years, she was making $500,000 a year, and she was under financial pressure. And I said, why are you under financial pressure? She owed a couple of $100,000 in taxes, and had no money in the bank, owed a couple $100,000 in taxes, discovered that you can't discharge taxes in bankruptcy. She thought she would just declare bankruptcy and start over. I'm thinking about that. And her answer was, if I could just make more money. I got news for her. Her problem isn't making more money. Her problem is how to manage the money that she has. We just helped her go from $46,000 a year to $500,000 a year, and she's worse off. If you look at this group of celebrities, if you were to come up with the name, they're pretty famous. I won't go through all of them, but all of these celebrities have a couple things in common. Number one, they're all making multi-million dollars a year, some of them $10, $20 million a year or more, and yet all of them declared bankruptcy. What is the problem when you can't live on $20 million a year or $50 million a year or $5 million a year? And the answer isn't just to make more money. Unfortunately, there's a lot of celebrities who declare bankruptcy. There's more bankruptcies each year in the United States than there are college graduates. 58% of all NFL players declare bankruptcy within 2 years. These are people making $5, $10 million, $20 million a year, and yet they declare bankruptcy. So the answer is not, well, I just need to make more money. Because even the people who are making fabulous incomes, that's not the answer. You need a system. And so we'd like to provide you with some ideas on a system that will help you. And it's basically a 5-step system. We call it the 5-step Ninja Wealth Formula. And so the formula is pretty simple. 5 steps. Step number 1, increase your income. Income does matter, but income alone is not the answer. And the answer is not just to make more income, okay? But you do want to get your income up. It's easier to build wealth if you're making money. Number 2 then is to have financial intelligence. We're going to give you some financial intelligence definitions. Number 3 then is once you have the income up and you have financial intelligence, we're going to offer you 3 wealth creation systems. We would recommend you pick one of these systems and implement it. Part of the system is your investing approach. We would recommend that you invest in real estate because you're in that business and you know real estate. And then number 5, the last step is to actually enjoy the financial freedom and the ability to self-actualize and wake up in the morning with wake-up money and do what you want that day. It's amazing. I've got so many partners in our company that have wake-up money. They have $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month coming in from their investments, and yet they're still selling real estate. And its reason is because they love it. They love what they do, and they love helping people. And so if that's great for you, great. If you'd rather be following a hobby or another career or travel, that's great too, but it's great to be in that position, and that's step number 5. Let's talk about, let's talk about how to get your income up. And the best thing you could do right now to get your income up is what we call the Ninja 9. And if you've been through the Ninja training programs, you know there's 5 daily habits and there's 4 weekly habits. I'm going to go through those briefly with you. We could spend the entire hour on those. We unfortunately don't have that time. But what's interesting about the Ninja 9 is all of them can be done at home. So if you're sheltered in place, you can do these every day. You can get up in the morning and do your 5 daily habits, and you can do your 4 weekly habits. Let's start with the 5 daily habits. These take about 30 minutes a day. We would recommend that you start your day with your gratitudes and your affirmations. Gratitude is a very powerful energy. It will put you in a positive mindset. Give thanks for the many things, the many blessings in your life, and also review your goals and do your affirmations related to those goals. Number 2, show up for work. Time block a time to do the Ninja 9 and stay on your agenda. So we'd recommend when you first get up, you not open up the email. Don't turn on the news. Don't be checking all your platforms, social media and so on, your text and your emails. Just show up. This is more of a challenge at home we're finding right now. We had a group of ninjas. We had a FaceTime call on this. A lot of them are struggling with showing up and time blocking at home. At home, you need a quiet place, preferably a room that you can go and close the door. If you have children at home, you don't want to be sitting at the kitchen table and you've got the family there and you're trying to do this. You need to have a quiet spot. You need to say to the family, look, I need to do my Ninja 5. It's going to take 30 minutes. I'm going to time block that. I'm going to go in the bedroom or my office, and I'm going to do that, and then I'll be back. Or I need 2 hours because I'm going to do all of my Ninja 9. It takes about 2 hours to do all of it. And that's what I'm going to do, and then we can do something as a family. Number 3, write 2 personal notes. It's the most powerful thing you can send to another person. And it puts you in a positive mental state. So there's a double benefit to it. And I would recommend in this time, you double down on this. I know a lot of ninjas who are writing 10 personal notes a day, not just 2. Number 4, focus on your hot list. This is a list of people who want to buy or sell. They know they want to buy or sell. They want to buy or sell with you. They want to buy or sell soon, usually in the next 90 days. These are the people that, for whatever reason, they have a compelling reason to do something. They will write a contract based upon the videos they've seen. They will take the risk of putting on a mask and gloves and going in and looking at property. They are ready to go, and you should ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1, who on this list is ready to write a contract this week? Who do I need to be spending time with this week, and how do we figure out how to help them? Number 2, if they're not ready to write a contract, your second question is, what do they need to do next to advance the sale? What needs to be done next to help them in the process? So if they're a buyer and they haven't been in and seen the lender or done their loan application online, they need to get that in process. That would be the next step for them. Number 5 then is your warm list. These are people that want to buy or sell, but they may not know they want to buy or sell. But you know they want to buy or sell because you're observing the changes going on in their lives. You're observing that their last child just left the nest, or they had a new baby, or they've had an adult child move back in, or an elderly parent move back in. They have some change going on in their life. They're probably going to want to do something in the next year. This is the group you definitely want to be talking to this week. You want to be writing notes to this week. You want to be connecting with this week. These 5 daily habits only take you about 30 minutes. We would recommend that you do them every morning. I was interviewing a panel of top producing ninjas from throughout the country. And I asked them, I said, what was it that you learned in the ninja installation class that helped you the most? Every one of them said the same thing, the Ninja 5. Getting up in the morning and starting my day right. They said, when I start my day right, I end up having a great day. And when I string great days together, I have great weeks, and great weeks turn into great months, and great months turn into my best year yet. So Ninja 5, very important. Then you have the 4 weekly habits. Again, we would recommend that you time block on your calendar a time to do this. Number 1, Habit number 6 here, your customer service calls. Have a set time when you're going to call all of your sellers, all of your active buyers, all of your under contract buyers, all of the people who have referred you business. Anybody who's in an active role right now in real estate, they want to hear from you. You need to do. They need hand holding right now, more than ever. And so make sure you're taking good care of your customers at this time. Number 7 then is 2 live real estate reviews. A real estate review is a simple overview of the market. It can be very simple. It can be a simple. A lot of our people, our ninjas, are using RPR, Realtor Property Resource, through NAR. You can do as simple as what I call a one-pager from the MLS, which is simply what's sold in their neighborhood in the last 12 months and what's currently for sale. Right now, people are very curious about what's going on in this market. And so we do a lot of real estate reviews by mail, but we would recommend that you do 2 live. And you can do these through Zoom calls, through GoToMeeting calls. You can do them electronically. Number 8 then is 50 live interviews a week. And a live interview is not a sales call. A live interview is simply calling people up and asking, how are you doing? One of my favorite dialogues is this. The phone rings, they answer the phone. I say, hi, this is Larry at the group, or this is Larry Kendall. Is this an okay time? You just came into my mind. And when somebody comes into my mind, I made a promise to myself that when that happens, I was going to reach out. So that's what I'm doing. You came into my mind. I'm just calling to see how you're doing. How's the family? How's business? Are you able to work from home? Have you been, are you still working? Recreation. What are you doing at home? What are you doing with the family? Are you able to get out? Dreams. One of my favorite dreams question is this. When this is all over, what's the first thing you're going to do? People love that question because what that question does, it gives them hope for the future. And then number 9 is you want to have a set time each week where you update your database. This is a great time right now to work on your business. If you can't work in your business, you can work on your business. I know so many people who their database really isn't tuned up like they would like it to be. This is a great time to do that. If you do the Ninja 9 on a consistent basis, what will happen is you'll make more money. And when your income goes up, then what you want to do is make sure that you're using that opportunity to create wealth. And we're going to offer you 3 wealth creation systems. The first one is what we call the wealth creation model. The second one is a wealth creation system for a salaried worker. So when I teach the Wake Up Money classes, we have a lot of people in those classes that are salaried. We also teach these classes for our clients. Many of them work at a company, or they work at a university, or they're on some sort of salary. They say, well, I don't have the ability to do the Ninja 9 and make an unlimited income. What about me? What's the system? So we have a system for you. And then we have, obviously, a sales associate system. So I'm going to walk you through those 3 wealth creation systems one at a time. Let's start with the wealth creation model, which is this. If you follow what we've just taught you with the Ninja 9, your income will go up. You have to do it consistently. It takes about 45 to 60 days once you start it to start to see a rise in your income, but it will happen. Then what you need to do is keep your baseline living expenses under control. You keep your expenses under control, and then the difference is what you can use for investment. Now, what tends to happen with so many people when their income goes up, what do? Well, they start spending more money. It's like the school teacher who went from $46,000 a year in income to $500,000 a year in income, but she's living commission check to commission check. And her income line and her expense line are tracking right along together, not saving anything. Well, here's the challenge, especially if you're in commission sales. We live in a very cyclical industry. And if there's a downturn in the market, and you're living too close to the line, all at once you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. Or if there's not just a downturn in the market. Right now economists are saying this is not an economic recession. This is more like a natural disaster. This is more like a hurricane that came through. and wipe things out, and it's going to take a while to rebuild. But the fundamentals of the economy are very, very strong. It's just that we've right now got a pandemic disaster. Well, you want to make sure you have money saved up, and so this is the basic model. Now, there's two ways to get there. One way is if you're salaried, and the other way is if you're on commission. So let's talk about those. Have you ever read in the newspaper or studied that that nurse or that school teacher or that cleaning lady that they discovered she was a multimillionaire? And you go, how did she do that? You know, she cleans rooms at the Marriott Hotel. She's done that for 25 years, and yet we've discovered that she's a multimillionaire. How did she do that? Well, there's a formula for that, and if you study people who've done that, basically what they do is they either invest all of or at least half of each pay raise. So when you get a pay raise, if you're on salary, either save all of that pay raise or at least half of it. You know, maybe you want to treat yourself to a little bit better lifestyle, celebrate a little bit that you got that pay raise, but don't celebrate by spending all of it. Don't just raise your baseline by the amount of the pay raise. What you want to do is save and invest at least half of each pay raise. Now, if you study those people that have done that, the two areas that they've invested in generally is either A, the stock market, or B, real estate. Those have been their two investment vehicles that have gotten them there. So if you're on salary, that's a way to do it. I have many staff people in our company that are multimillionaires, and it was because we helped them with this, or with number two, if they're in a dual income family, learn to live on one income and use the other income to pay taxes and invest. This is the formula that Pat and I used in 1980 when we were faced with a downturn in the market, and we didn't have money saved, and we thought we might go broke, and we had that wake-up call. One of the strategies we decided at that very moment was this. Pat was working as a professor at the university, and we scaled back and said, we'll learn to live on her income. And my income is cyclical because I'm selling real estate, and so we'll use my income to pay the taxes and to invest. And we did that from that point on. Now, went on later to be very successful and making a lot of money, but we were still living in a home that was supported by her income. And a lot of people said, why don't you buy a bigger house or do this or a bigger car? We could have, but we chose at that point, it was such a wake-up call for us, we chose to live on her income and use my income for savings or for investing and for paying taxes. As a result, we became wealthy in a hurry. The third strategy is for salespeople. And what you want to do here is you basically want to put yourself on salary. What is it that most salespeople do when they get a commission check? Well, they immediately put it in a checking account and they start spending it. We would recommend that you stop doing that. Instead, we would recommend that you, when you receive that commission check, put it in a business account. Now, you may say, well, that's just a play on words. Well, it is a little bit, but not really. You know, a business account is like an interest-bearing account that has limited checking. Maybe you can only write, 4 or 5 checks a month or something like that. And then what you want to do is you want to, out of that business account, write a check each month into your checking account. In other words, put yourself on salary. Start running your business like a business. So if you think it takes, $5,000 a month to live, write a check out of your business account each month into your checking account for $5,000 a month, or $3,000 a month, or $10,000 a month, whatever it is for you. If you end up with too much month at the end of the money, well, that tells you either you need to raise your salary or you need to reduce your expenses. Then create these what we call buckets. So you have another account then that you're out of your business account, you put money in a tax account. You put money in a retirement or investment account. If you have children, maybe you have a college account. If you're an owner that's listening to this webinar, we have this set up in our business office in our company. So our salespeople can come in and our business managers will actually set this up for them so that they will receive basically a salary check. All their commissions go into a business account, and they'll actually bust their checks into these various accounts. It really does help people begin to learn to save money and build wealth. I like to share the story of Bud Raisey. Bud's an amazing guy, and he's a wonderful friend. We've worked together for over 30 years, and when I first met Bud, he was the number one mortgage lender in our market. Fabulously successful, high income, just a great guy, funny, and came in the office one day, and I was talking with him, and he pulled me aside and he said, "Larry, I'm thinking about making a change." He said, I think I would like to get out of the mortgage business. And I'd really like to sell real estate, and I'd like to come to your company. And I was blown away because, as I said, he was either the top or one of the top mortgage lenders in our entire market, had a fabulous income. I thought he was happy with that. He says, "No, I think I'd really rather be in real estate. I'd like to come to work for you." And I said, "Well, Bud, we'd love to have you." He said, "Could I bring my wife, Meredy, in for an interview?" And I thought, well, sure, And so Bud and his wife come in for the interview. And the reason he wanted Meredy to come in was because he closed the door and he said, "We're contemplating bankruptcy. And we've decided that we're going to declare bankruptcy. And I just want you to know that before I come to work here. And I don't want that to reflect badly on your company. And if I should declare, I'm trying to decide, should I declare bankruptcy before I come to your company, or are you okay if I declare bankruptcy after I'm here?" I said, "Bud and Meredy, let me look at your situation and let's see what we can do. Maybe there's a way out for you." And so we did, and basically put Bud and Meredy on the same program that I just described, where we showed him the Ninja Wealth formula. We set it up with our business manager that basically, Bud, I said, just go out and sell real estate. We'll take care of the financing side. We're going to give you a salary. We're going to put your money in a business account. We're going to bust it into these buckets. And Bud went on to become one of the wealthiest people in our company. Fabulous net worth, fabulous portfolio of investment properties, has a second home down in Scottsdale. Very, very happy guy. And we have a term that we call in Ninja called TSW. The system works. If you work the system will work for you. For Bud, the system took him from facing bankruptcy to being one of the wealthiest people that I know. And the system will work for you as well. As I said, TSW, the system works. Let's talk a little bit about financial intelligence. And I think many of you may be familiar with Robert Kiyosaki. He's famous for his Rich Dad, Poor Dad series of books. Robert actually used to live in Colorado, and he and I knew each other, and well, we still know each other, but we used to teach classes together. Back then, he was known as Bob. After he became famous, he became Robert Kiyosaki. But I really like his series of books, and I like his philosophy, and I like his definitions of financial intelligence. He says, money alone is not wealth. Financial intelligence is wealth. And there's a lot of illusions of wealth in this country. You see people with very high income, like the celebrities. That's not wealth. You see people with the toys, the big house, the cars. Well, we think they're wealthy, but that wealth is financed by debt. Have you ever studied lottery winners? It's so interesting. So many of them, within 5 years after they win the lottery, where are they? They're broke. And the reason is because they did not have financial intelligence. T. Harv Eker, who wrote the book Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, he says, give me 5 minutes with you and I can predict your financial future for the rest of your life based upon what he calls your money blueprint. And what I have found in counseling and helping people become wealthy is a lot of this requires some reprogramming on their non-conscious. And one of the best ways to do that is this book by T. Harv Eker, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I would highly recommend his book. Robert Kiyosaki has some definitions of financial intelligence. Let's start with assets and liabilities. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. And a liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. So, for example, a savings account that pays interest is an asset. A stock that pays a dividend is an asset. A little rental house that generates rental income is an asset. A boat or a snowmobile is a liability. A second home in the mountains or at the beach, unless you're renting it out and it's generating cash flow, is a liability. Even your personal residence, by this definition, is a liability. I know people that keep buying bigger and bigger houses with bigger and bigger debt, thinking they're accumulating assets, but they're really accumulating a liability. Rich people acquire assets. Poor people acquire liabilities that they think are assets. So you think that big house is an asset. It's not. It's a liability. Instead, acquire rental properties. Those are assets, or stocks, or cash right now. And then there's the difference between good debt and bad debt. Good debt finances assets, and somebody else makes the payment. You know that little rental house? It's got a debt on it, but it's good debt because every month that tenant pays rent, and you take part of that rent payment and you pay the mortgage. So really, the tenant is making the payment. Basically, that tenant is buying the house for you. Bad debt finances liabilities, and who has to make the payment? You do. Knowing the difference between good debt and bad debt is very, very important. One of the guys that I really follow and admire is Dave Ramsey. And I think Dave has done a lot of good helping people get out of debt. I would highly recommend if you're in debt, his book, I highly recommend it, The Total Money Makeover. The one area that I maybe disagree a little bit with Dave is on his definition of debt. You know, he considers all debt to be bad debt. And he's really a master of helping people get out of bad debt. But he has these baby steps, and his last baby step is to then start investing. Well, if you invest in real estate, I don't think you can buy much real estate if you have to pay cash for it. I think at some point you're going to need some good debt. And so be willing to take on good debt. I agree with Dave. Get rid of the bad debt. I don't know if you've heard of Thomas Stanley. He was a professor at the University of Georgia. He's most famous for his book, The Millionaire Next Door. He's written several books. His latest book before his untimely death in a car wreck was called Stop Acting Rich and Start Living Like a Real Millionaire. And Dr. Stanley says your income-producing net worth is more important than your income. I'm going to repeat that. Your income-producing net worth is more important than your income. So not just your net worth, but your income-producing net worth. The goal of Wake Up Money is to help you increase your net worth. Now, Ninja Selling's goal is to help you increase your income. Wake Up Money goal is to help you increase your net worth so you can enjoy financial freedom. And what is interesting, a lot of people don't know what their net worth is. You know, we know what our income is because we have to file a tax return. But a lot of times when I ask somebody, well, what's your net worth? I get a blank stare. They have no idea. Well, it's very simple. Your net worth is what you own less what you owe. So take a sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle, draw another line across, form a T, and on the left-hand column, just make a list of what you own. Oh, I'll just see, I have a house, I have a car, I have some money in savings and checking, I have some investments, and so on. Just make a list of what you have. Then on the right-hand column, make a list of what you owe. Well, I have a loan on that house, and I have a loan on that car, and I have some credit cards. I owe a little bit of money on my taxes, etc. Then subtract what you owe from what you own, and the difference is your net worth. Sad thing is, for many Americans, there is no net worth, or it may even be a negative net worth, primarily due to high credit card debt or high student debt. What you want to do is build wealth, and what you want to do is have a positive net worth. Now, Dr. Stanley would go a step further. He says, if you are really serious about accumulating wealth, 80% of your assets should be income producing. So if we go back and look at this, you know, your house isn't income producing. Your car, unless it's used in a trade or business like in real estate, is not income producing. Your savings and checking account is income producing. Your investments are income producing. He says if you're really serious about building your wealth in a hurry, then you need to have 80% of that left-hand column in income-producing assets. I'm often asked, well, where should I be for my age on this net worth? Am I on the path? Am I behind? Am I ahead? How am I doing? Well, Dr. Stanley, in his research of wealthy people, has a formula that he found is pretty accurate. And this comes out of his book, The Millionaire Next Door. So, how much would it take to maintain your lifestyle if you wanted to retire? Or what would happen if you got hurt right now? Or what would happen if there was a pandemic right now and you couldn't work? How much net worth should you have for your age and for your income? Well, he has a formula for that. You take your age times your pre-tax annual income and then divide by 10, and that should be your basic net worth. So let's do an example. Let's take a person that's 40 years old. They have a household income. Now, if they have a dual income family, it would be the entire pre-tax household income of $150,000. Multiply 40 times 150,000, that's $6 million. Then divide by 10, and that 40-year-old household should have a net worth of $600,000 right now as a bare bones minimum. In fact, Dr. Stanley says that should be the minimum, and really he recommends that you have double that. So that person at age 40 with $150,000 household income really, he believes, should have a net worth of about $1.2 million. So that gives you a kind of a formula to follow, and we would recommend that you maybe set some goals around that. Let's go back to our Ninja Wealth Creation model for a minute. Get your income up, keep your expenses under control, and invest. Let's talk about the investment side of this for a minute. How should you invest? Well, we think you should invest in real estate. Why? Well, Dr. Stanley, in his research, guess what he found? More wealth is created through real estate than through any other investment. Peter Lynch. Peter Lynch is considered the master investor of Wall Street. He ran the Fidelity Magellan Fund for years, had the highest return on investment for his investors, has written a number of books. Two of my favorites are Beating the Street and You Have to Learn to Earn. He was once asked, in all of your years on Wall Street, what is the greatest investment you've ever seen? He said, a single-family house. You can't beat it. Then we have Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest men in the world. If you read his investment strategies, he says, only invest in things you understand. Well, you know what? Most people understand real estate. It's a very simple investment. They understand it. They live in a house. They grew up in a house. It's not some sort of exotic investment. And homes are one of the three basics of life: food, shelter, and clothing. You know, it's not a fad investment. What I really like is the tenant buys the property. If you can scratch together the down payment and get the property, the tenant will pay it off for you. And once it's paid off, homes generate income. The beautiful thing about real estate is there are 4 returns on investment. You know, a savings account has 1 return. You get the cash flow of the interest. Well, in real estate, you get the cash flow, which is the rent. You also get the principal reduction every month. That tenant is paying you rent, and you use part of that rent to pay the loan. There's a portion of the loan that's paid down every month. The tenant's buying you the property. Then you have the appreciation, when the home goes up in value. Over time, homes have appreciated. And then you have the depreciation, which is the tax savings. So real estate's a great investment because it has these 4 returns. A lot of times when you think of investing, I get this, I'm not a big investor. Or, the institutional investors are buying the houses, or the professional investors. Over 60% of all the investment properties, these are single-family homes, townhomes, condos in this country, are owned by what we call mom-and-pop investors. People who own 10 properties or less. And they're the largest investment group. And keep that in mind, not only for your own investments, but for the clients that you work with. Don't just think in terms of them buying a house. Think in terms of them also buying houses for investment. My favorite investor of all time was a guy named Don, and he was a carpet layer. And he had the most simple formula for buying real estate. He would simply look for houses that were in good locations and good, good what he called bones, good floor plan, structurally sound. And his simple formula was this: if I can put 20 to 25% down and have this property break even or cash flow, I want to buy it. Now, when I started working with Don back in the day, we had trouble getting him qualified to buy loans. He was only making $35,000 a year laying carpet. His first couple of properties we had to buy were FHA assumptions, some owner carries. We did whatever we could do to help him get some properties purchased. All it took was for him to buy 3 or 4 properties. And then those properties went up, the rents went up, we refinanced those, he used those to buy more. Today, Don's portfolio of his real estate, his income is $42,000 a month. It helps if you have high income, but it's not necessarily a requirement. Don, the carpet layer, was able to do it with making $35,000 a year, but he followed the wealth formula that we've just taught you. Let me kind of wrap this up with a couple of other thoughts. The best way to pay for a college education is when the children are young, buy a property for them, put it on a 15-year loan. When they're 18 and ready to go to college, that property's paid for. That property will pay for just about any college education, any college that they want to go to. In fact, we have a mindset of the ninja is that every house, there should be a house for every child. So if you have this family right here of 4, they need 3 houses. They need a house to live in, and they need a house for each of those 2 little kids for when they go to college. If you think of it that way, it expands your market. If you really take the mindset of that, you ask yourself, okay, how many households do I have in my database? Well, I got 200 households. Okay, how many of those households have children, and how many children are in those? Well, if you average, let's say, one child for every 2 households, you have 100 children in those in your database. Your mission now is to provide 100 college educations for these kids. And your mission is to sit down with those parents and show them how this works and how to do this. Hopefully there's some ideas here that we've shared with you that will be helpful. I'd like to wrap up with a couple of thoughts about the coronavirus, the situation we're in right now, and kind of getting prepared for the future. The next 2 or 3 months, you're going to need to survive, and we've given you some survival strategies. But after that, you're going to want to thrive, and I'd like to give you some thriving strategies. I'd like to start with remembering that we're in one of the 3 basics of life: food, shelter, and clothing. When you disrupt one of these 3 basics, as being disrupted right now in housing, the demand doesn't go away. The demand just gets put off to later. It's called pent-up demand. There's going to be a surge of demand at the end of this because the demand is there. It's just going to be pent up. In fact, I had a ninja say to me, I don't think I'm going to make less income this year. I think it's just going to be postponed. We think it's probable that many of you will do 12 months of sales in 9 months. So go into it with that mindset. And what should you be doing right now to be prepared when that wave hits? We have a saying in Ninja: success often comes to those who get in front of the inevitable. It's like surfing. And you know that to catch that wave, you're sitting out on that surfboard. It's quiet water. You're sitting there. It's quiet. And you see the wave on the horizon coming. What do you need to do? You got to be paddling like crazy before that wave ever gets here. Because if you wait for the wave and then you start paddling, it's too late. You missed it. Right now, you should be paddling like crazy. You should be making those Ninja 9 calls. You should be connecting with your people. You should be getting your buyers tuned up with their loans in place, ready to go. A lot of sellers have taken their homes off the market. And I predict that when this is over, they'll be putting them back on. And there will be a flood of inventory coming on for the first time in about 4 or 5 years. For the first time in 4 or 5 years, buyers will actually have homes to pick from. Now, that inventory is not going to last very long. I predict it'll last 30 to 60 days. And the buyers who are tuned up, ready to go, with loans in place, are going to pick over that inventory very quickly. The realtors who are tuned up, ready to go, and have their clients ready to go, are going to be ready to catch that wave. If when the wave hits, if you're just then starting to think, well, maybe I need to go back to work because I've been a hermit for 60 days, it's too late. You need to be doing it now. I'll close with the realtor's prayer. Some of you may, if you've been through very many market cycles, you know the realtor's prayer. The realtor's prayer is this: Dear Lord, please give me one more real estate boom, and I promise not to blow it this time. What we're in right now is a wake-up call for your health and a wake-up call for your wealth. So when this wave returns, let's make the most of it. Hopefully we've given you some ideas on the system. The system works if you follow it. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jessica. I think we maybe have we have about 5 minutes here for questions. I'll stay on longer if you want me to, and do my very best to answer your questions. I want to thank you for being with us on this webinar. I hope you got some things out of it that will help you both survive and thrive. Thanks.
Wonderful, Larry. Thank you so much, and thank you for all of the audience. We've got so many people on here with lots of questions. We'll try to do a little rapid fire here. So the first one is, a comment. You are the best, Larry. Loved this and needed it, and I think we all share that sentiment. We've got a couple of substantive questions here regarding access to the home equity line of credits that you talked about towards the beginning of the presentation. People asking about potential barriers here, being an independent contractor or a recently furloughed person, or if their kids are unemployed, what kind of access could they have to an equity line, and what would you suggest for next steps to find out?
You bet. The first step would be to call your commercial bank. Typically, it's commercial banks, not mortgage lenders, that provide home equity lines of credit. So your commercial bank is who you want to call. Every bank is different. Their underwriting is different. Generally speaking, the most important thing that they're after is, do you have equity? That's more important than are you employed or unemployed, or what it was your income last year. They're still going to look at that. That's still very much of a consideration. But one of the biggest things is your equity. You know, if you've been temporarily laid off, or if you're a independent contractor who's in a downturn right now over the next couple of months, but you can demonstrate that over the last 2 or 3 years you've had good income, and you're sitting on 150,000, 100,000, 50,000 of equity, they're not going to give you a line of credit for the entire amount. They'll give you a line of credit based upon your income or lack of income, a smaller amount. But it's worth that phone call. It's worth checking out. I have worked with many of our own people over the last month, the last 2 or 3 weeks, who've been successful in getting lines of credit. They're all independent contractors.
Fantastic. And then we've got 2 more minutes. Let's take this one. Any suggestions for brand new agents facing this situation?
Well, brand new agents, obviously you need enough fuel in the tank to keep going. That's your cash. So that's important. And then what you want to do is Ninja 9, Ninja 9, Ninja 9, Ninja 9. Ninja 9 is if there is a magic bullet, that's it. And you can do that from home. You don't, that you're not limited. So I would just encourage you to do that. There is just like planting seeds, there's a time for germination, growth, and then a harvest. It's about 45 to 60 days. So if for example, this market is going to turn in, let's say, 2 months from now, you need to be planting those seeds and building those relationships now. So that would be my one piece of advice. Be doing your Ninja 9 every single day for the next 60 days.
Wonderful. Thank you. We do have a few more questions here. What I'd like to do is, if you have questions, we're going to collect them, and then we will figure out a way to answer these individually. Larry and I can collaborate afterwards. We do have a hard stop at 11 o'clock. I want to thank all of you so much for being here. Larry, again, we want more of you, clearly. So maybe we can organize a second follow-up to this. There is a recording. I'm getting a lot of questions here about recordings. Yes, it will be posted on Leading RE Access. So if you do want to replay this, you know that is there. Larry, thanks again. Everyone, be well, be wealthy, be safe, and we hope to have all of you back on our future webinars soon. Take care.